João, a 40-year-old man, bore the marks of a lifetime of hard work on his calloused hands. His eyes, however, shone with the stubbornness and unwavering hope of a dreamer. He spent his days in a dusty warehouse, stacking boxes that seemed increasingly heavy. The routine was monotonous and exhausting, his salary barely covering basic expenses. But in his mind, each box he moved was a brick, each drop of sweat, cement in the construction of a future he painted with vibrant colors. From a young age, João harbored a dream that, to many, might seem modest, but for him, represented freedom, dignity, and the fulfillment of a purposeful life. Owning his own liquor store at IT wasn't just about the commercial trading of beers, soft drinks, and spirits. It was about the autonomy of being your own boss, the satisfaction of building something with your own hands, of seeing your effort and dedication transform into a thriving business that served your community. He imagined himself behind a clean, organized counter, the shelves brimming with colorful bottles, the distinctive smell of malt and hops mingling with the aroma of fresh coffee in the air, and the cheerful buzz of satisfied customers coming and going, taking with them not just drinks but a piece of that welcoming atmosphere. This dream was the inexhaustible engine that drove him every morning, every extra hour sacrificed, every penny saved with almost religious zeal. For more than a decade, João lived a life of voluntary deprivation. While his friends enjoyed nights out at bars, weekend getaways, and the purchase of new cars, he controlled every expense with an almost monastic discipline. His small apartment was simple, his clothes modest, and his leisure activities rare and inexpensive. Any money left over after paying rent and buying essentials went straight into a savings account, untouchable, sacred. There were countless moments of discouragement, of questioning the validity of so much sacrifice, of an almost uncontrollable urge to give up and spend it all in a hedonistic impulse. Sleepless nights, staring at the ceiling, he wondered if it was worth it. But the image of his future deposit, vivid and detailed in his mind, always brought him back to focus. He knew that patience was the master key, and that each day of renunciation brought him a little closer to achieving his great goal. On each anniversary, he made a silent toast to his goal, promising himself that one day he would toast for real, in his own establishment, with the drink he himself would sell. After 12 long years of rigorous saving, every penny counted and every wish postponed, the day finally arrived. João opened his bank statement on his old computer, and a wide, genuine smile, the kind he hadn't felt so intensely in a long time, lit up his face. The number he so desperately longed for, the sum that represented the materialization of his dream, was there in bold, concrete proof of his unwavering perseverance. It was enough. It was time to transform the abstraction of a wish into a tangible reality. The following months were a whirlwind of frenetic activity and crucial decisions. João, with a mixture of relief and thrilling vertigo, resigned from the warehouse. That job, which for years had been his safe haven and his source of capital, was now just a completed stage. The search for the ideal location was meticulous, almost obsessive. He toured neighborhoods, evaluated commercial properties, and spoke with brokers, always with a clear vision of what he wanted. A strategic location, easily accessible for customers, with good visibility and, crucially, enough space for a robust inventory and a welcoming service area. He found an old warehouse in a busy neighborhood, with a worn facade and an interior that screamed for attention. Despite its precarious condition, João saw beyond the dirt and neglect. He saw the potential, the blank canvas on which his dream would be painted. With the help of some loyal friends and local bricklayers, the place began to come to life. João, always practical, rolled up his sleeves and actively participated in every step of the renovation. Walls were sanded and painted in light tones that conveyed cleanliness and spaciousness. Sturdy wooden shelves were installed with precision, and a service counter was meticulously constructed, designed to be both functional and inviting. Every hammer blow, every brushstroke, every screw tightened was a step toward his destiny, an investment not only financial but also emotional. He oversaw everything, from the electrical wiring to the tile selection for the small bathroom, imprinting his personality on every detail. Finally, with the renovated facade painted a vibrant blue that stood out from the street, and the João's warehouse sign proudly displayed in bold letters. The doors opened. The smell of fresh paint mingled with the aroma of the first drinks just arrived, creating a unique atmosphere of novelty and promise. João stood there, behind the counter, with a mixture of nervousness and euphoria that made him feel more alive than ever. The first customers arrived, curious, drawn by the novelty and the contagious energy of the new owner. Soon, the joy of seeing his business up and running, of hearing the clinking of bottles and the sound of the cash register, filled the space. It was the beginning of a new life, and João felt, in every fiber of his being, that all the sacrifice had been worth it. His optimism was palpable, almost a character in his own right in João's warehouse, and he was ready to embrace the challenges that he knew would come, but which, at that moment, seemed small compared to the magnitude of his achievement. João's warehouse quickly became a neighborhood landmark. João's genuine friendliness, his prodigious memory for customers' names and preferences, combined with the carefully selected variety of products and fair prices, won over the local clientele. Business was constant, and the ringing of the cash register echoed like a melody of success in the entrepreneur's ears. João felt the sweet taste of initial success, a tangible reward for years of sacrifice. However, the initial euphoria began to give way to a more pragmatic analysis of the market reality. Competition was fierce. Large supermarket chains and other beverage warehouses, with their mass purchasing power, were able to offer prices that sometimes challenged João's ability to compete. He realized that to maintain his competitive prices, attract and retain even more customers, and at the same time ensure a healthy profit margin that would allow the business to grow, he would need to drastically optimize his acquisition costs. The search for more advantageous suppliers became a priority. It was in this search for efficiency that a new supplier emerged, almost like a mirage in the desert. A well-dressed representative with an easy smile and a convincing way of speaking presented himself to João with an irresistible offer. Well-known brand beverages, the same ones he already sold, but at significantly lower market prices. João, with his limited experience in the complex and sometimes murky world of beverage distribution, saw the offer as a golden opportunity. He had always purchased from traditional distributors, with fixed prices and little room for negotiation. The chance to increase his profit margin without having to pass the cost on to the customer, or even reduce prices to attract more customers, seemed like a stroke of luck, an unexpected blessing for his young business. The first batches arrived, and everything seemed perfect. The beverages were identical to the originals, the packaging impeccable, the security seals apparently intact. João, in his innocence and trust in the supplier's word, had no reason to be suspicious. He increased his orders, and the warehouse's cash flow improved considerably, allowing him to invest in small improvements and expand inventory. He took pride in his business acumen, believing he had found a shortcut to even greater success. The satisfaction of growing profits overshadowed any small doubts that might have crept into a more skeptical corner of his mind. John's warehouse thrived, seemingly without clouds on the horizon, sailing on seemingly calm waters that hid treacherous currents beneath the surface. The morning sun, which once held the promise of another day of work and prosperity for João, now seemed to carry a dark omen. The light streaming through the kitchen window, usually a call to optimism, now revealed the dust suspended in the air, a reminder of the fragility of things. As he sipped his coffee, a morning ritual that connected him to tranquility before the hustle and bustle of the day, João's eyes scanned the headlines of the local newspaper. It was a long-standing habit, a way of keeping up with the happenings in the community he held so dear. Suddenly, a news story leaped into his eyes, making his heart race and the coffee in his cup grow cold, forgotten. The headline, in bold letters, announced, "Man hospitalized in serious condition after consuming drinks spiked with methanol." The photo accompanying the article was of a familiar, unmistakable face. It was Mr. Antonio, one of his oldest and most loyal customers, a retiree who always bought a bottle of artisanal cachaca or a special beer from his warehouse for the weekend. The article detailed the severe symptoms of poisoning, blindness, organ failure, and the suspicion that the drink had been purchased from a local business. The description of the product, a lesser-known brand of cachaca that João had recently purchased from the new supplier, made João's blood run cold. A chill ran down João's spine, colder than any morning breeze. He tried to push the thought away, tried to rationalize, but the image of Mr. Antonio, always smiling, confident, and the memory of the bottles of that specific cachaca he had sold, acquired from the supplier at miraculous prices, struck him like a lightning bolt. A feeling of nausea and despair washed over him, crushing any shred of optimism. Could it be? Could his warehouse, his lifelong dream, the place he had built with so much sweat and honesty, be the source of such a cruel tragedy? Guilt, heavy and suffocating, began to settle in his chest, transforming the joy of his success into a bitter foreboding of impending doom. The world, which until then had seemed in perfect order, was crumbling around him, revealing a dark and dangerous face he never imagined he would encounter. With his heart pounding and his mind racing, João didn't hesitate. The image of Mr. Antonio in the newspaper, the alarming headline, everything blended into a whirlwind of fear and guilt. He put the paper aside, his hands shaking uncontrollably, and picked up the phone to call the supplier who had offered him the drinks at such advantageous prices. With each ring, his hope diminished. The call went straight to voicemail repeatedly. He tried his cell phone, his landline, and sent messages, but there was no answer. The silence on the other end was deafening, confirming his worst fears. Distrust turned into a cold certainty. He had been deceived, duped by the promise of easy profits. The supplier, who had previously seemed so helpful and trustworthy, had vanished like smoke, taking with him the illusion of a thriving business and leaving behind a trail of danger and misfortune. Without wasting a second, driven by desperate adrenaline, João ran to the warehouse. That place, once his pride, now felt like a minefield. With grim determination and a lump in his throat, he began collecting every bottle of the brands he had purchased from that shadow supplier. Beers, spirits, wines, liqueurs. Everything that might be compromised was urgently removed from the shelves and isolated in a separate area of the warehouse, out of reach of any customers. With each bottle he removed, the image of Mr. Antonio in the hospital bed became more vivid in his mind, and the weight of responsibility crushed his shoulders. He felt the urgency to protect his community, to prevent anyone else from going through what Mr. Antonio was facing. Parallel to this frantic action, João did what he felt was his unavoidable moral duty. With a choked voice, he contacted Mr. Antonio's family, expressing his deep consternation and offering all necessary support. He pledged to cover all medical expenses, arrange transportation, and provide any assistance needed, sparing no effort or expense. Transparency and honesty were the only ways he could deal with the situation, to try to mitigate the pain and suffering caused, albeit indirectly, by his decision. The priority now was not profit or the reputation of his business, but the life and recovery of his client, and the restoration of the trust he had inadvertently broken. João knew the journey would be long and difficult, but he was determined to do what was right, whatever the cost. The days that followed were filled with intense apprehension for João, marked by daily visits to the hospital and conversations with Mr. Antonio's family. However, amidst the anguish, a growing sense of relief began to emerge. Mr. Antonio, after weeks of intensive treatment, bravely battling the after-effects of the poisoning, was finally discharged. His recovery was slow and required extensive physical therapy and medical monitoring. But with each small step forward, João's hope was renewed. Mr. Antonio's family, moved by João's unwavering stance, expressed profound gratitude. His honesty, unconditional support, and willingness to take responsibility without shying away transformed a potential tragedy into a bond of trust and mutual respect. Mr. Antonio, though shaken by the experience, understood that João had been just as much a victim as he had been of the bad faith of an unscrupulous supplier, and their friendship grew even stronger, with the client's recovery as a beacon of hope and a constant reminder of the importance of ethics. João dedicated himself steadfastly to rebuilding his business. The first and most crucial step was the search for new suppliers. This time, the lesson had been learned painfully and indelibly. João wasn't satisfied with low prices. He demanded guarantees, personally visited the warehouses of potential partners, verified their health and operating licenses, and sought references from other retailers. He spent days researching, calling, and traveling, transforming himself into a true investigator. He established partnerships with renowned, long-standing distributors who, despite offering lower profit margins, guaranteed the origin and quality of each bottle. The safety and health of his customers became his absolute priority, a non-negotiable value that he now defended tooth and nail, and which became the new pillar of his business. News of the incident with Mr. Antonio, and especially of João's exemplary conduct, spread quickly throughout the community. Far from driving customers away, the transparency and integrity he demonstrated strengthened the reputation of João's warehouse in a way no marketing campaign could achieve. People began to see him not just as a businessman, but as a man of character who erred through naivety but who admitted his mistakes, corrected them, and did the right thing, putting the lives and well-being of his customers above any profit. Trust, previously shaken by the shadow of tragedy, was restored and, paradoxically, solidified through the crisis. The warehouse, now stocked exclusively with products of proven origin and guaranteed quality, began to rebuild itself, brick by brick, on the unshakable foundations of ethics, commitment to the community, and loyalty to his customers. João knew the road would be long, but with each customer who walked in and greeted him with a smile, he felt he was on the right track. Years had passed since the incident with Mr. Antonio, and João's warehouse was no longer just a liquor store. It had become a true pillar of the community. The crisis, which nearly destroyed him and forced him to question every decision, paradoxically, was the catalyst for solid and sustainable growth. João's reputation as a businessman of integrity, responsibility, and, above all, humanity, spread like a river overflowing its banks, attracting not only old customers, who returned with even greater loyalty, but also new ones, who sought the safety, quality, and ethics that he now guaranteed with unwavering rigor. The warehouse shelves were always stocked with products from reliable suppliers, each bottle with its provenance verified and documented. João had implemented a rigorous quality control system, something he never imagined necessary at the beginning of his dream, but which became his trademark. He became a tireless advocate for business ethics, sharing his story in lectures for small business owners and warning other traders about the dangers of the informal market and the pursuit of profit at any cost. His warehouse was a living example of how transparency, customer commitment, and integrity can be a business's greatest assets, outweighing any dubious price advantage. João's warehouse prospered beyond his wildest expectations. He expanded the physical space, adding a tasting area and a small cafe, transforming the warehouse into a social and cultural meeting point for the neighborhood. He hired and trained local employees, providing opportunities and a fair working environment. With each new employee, he shared his story, instilling in them the importance of honesty and respect for the customer. João, now a seasoned, respected businessman with hard-won wisdom, looked back and saw the long and winding journey. From a hard-working dreamer who saved every penny, through the shock of a near tragedy that made him doubt everything, to the well-deserved success he built on the ruins of a mistake. He understood that the true value of his business lay not only in the drinks he sold, but in the trust he rebuilt, the lessons he learned, and the integrity he maintained. His dream had come true, but in a much deeper, more meaningful, and more resilient way than he could have ever imagined, leaving a legacy of honesty and perseverance for the entire community.